His name is Jimmy Akin. He is the senior apologist at the Catholic Answers, a member of the Catholic Answers Speaking Bureau. Perhaps you've seen him on EWTN. He publishes books and articles, and his own journey into Catholicism is very interesting. And again, let me just say, we're not here to argue, we're here to learn. And I am delighted to have him with him. He's going to be with us for a couple of sessions. And today, Jimmy, good morning. Where are you? Where are we Skyping you in from?
From San Diego, California. Thank you very much, Perry.
Hey, nice to have you with us. Wow. Your own journey is, I was reading where you thought you were called to be a Protestant pastor and go to seminary. And on that search, you ended up in Catholicism. Tell us briefly about that.
Well, when I was 20 years old, I experienced a profound conversion to Christ, and I really wanted to serve God, and I wanted to enter the ministry and perhaps serve as a seminary professor. And so I was studying theology, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't just reflexively fall into the theology of whatever church happened to be closest down the street to me. So I made a point of studying the theologies of all different kinds of Christians, and eventually I began to make discoveries in reading the Bible that made me sit up and take notice, even though I had a Protestant background.
Let's dig right into this. Can you help us with the origins of the Catholic Church? How far back does it go?
It goes back to the ministry of Jesus. One of the things that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 16 is that he would build his church and the gates of hell would not prevail against it. He uses the singular. He says, my church, in Greek, not my churches. And if you look at what he says about his church in that passage and elsewhere, it indicates that it's a visible communion of Christians, something that's an identifiable outward church, not just an invisible spiritual union. And so that means that his church has existed since the first century. And if you look around at the different communions of Christians, and I have to point out that, anyone who is a, baptized believer in Jesus Christ is a Christian. So it's not like only Catholics are Christians. Protestants are Christians too. But if you look at the different groups of Christians around the world, there's only one church that goes all the way back to the first century, and that's the Catholic Church. It acquired that name very early because, as we know from the New Testament and from church history, there were a variety of different groups that began to split off rather early, and as a result of that, the church needed a name for itself, and the name that was selected comes from the Greek term kataholos, which we know in English as Catholic. In Greek, it means universal. And so that name came about in the second half of the first century as a way of distinguishing the universal church that Jesus had founded from the various local churches that were splitting off from it.
I know that in other denominations, in various creeds, they'll use the word Catholic, meaning universal. Is that correct?
Yes, that term is used in creeds such as the Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed. It's used with a different meaning in, for example, Protestant circles, but it is something that goes way back in church history, like I said, to the second half of the first century.